Hello and welcome to the Health Bridge podcast. This is your host, Holly B. Today I'm introducing you to Meridyth Driskill. Meridyth is a holistic trauma resolution practitioner, soul bent on helping as many people as possible live from their hearts instead of their wounds. Safety, connection, and fulfillment are the pillars of her work and process. Her own history of trauma and chronic pain led her to self healing work, and she quickly realized that the path to her purpose was through her pain. She spent 7 years studying the mind, body, energy, emotions, nervous system, and trauma to offer a sustainable approach to transformation the holistic way. Meredith has great energy. I know you're going to love her. We're going to be talking about trauma, both with the trauma that did happen to you and also the subtle traumas of the things that did not happen to you. We're going to talk about why trauma is so important to look at when you are going through a healing journey, especially with an autoimmune condition. We're going to talk about how to really start to tune in and listen to your body because your body has all the answers. You'll notice that, or you may notice that it was pouring on and off during this recording. So you may notice a little bit of background noise of rain. I apologize for that. It was morning. I was cold. I was drinking my morning drink, which anytime I'm recording in the mornings, I always have my warm, cozy drink that I love to have to get me started during the day. And so you might see me sipping on that during the video if you're watching this on YouTube. And I just thought maybe I would share actually what I drink in the mornings. It's what got me off of caffeine finally. And it's just so yummy and chocolatey and delicious. If you love chocolate as well, this might be something that you'd like, but it's an electrolyte drink and I drink it warm and I'll add a little coconut milk or cream to it, make it just that much more yummy. So if you're interested in what I drink in the mornings and how I use it to get off of caffeine, just send me a little message and say hot drink, and I'll send you a link to the product that I like to use. Nothing I'm affiliated with, just something yummy and delicious that I recommend to my clients. On that note, I will let you dive into this amazing episode with Meridyth Driskill. Meredith, welcome to the Health Bridge podcast. I am very excited for a conversation today. You speak to some topics that are just of core importance to the chronic health community and to the women with lupus that I work with. And it's also a topic that people don't want to talk about. And that topic is underlying trauma. So, well, first of all, thank you for being here. I'll let you introduce yourself and say hello, and then I'll keep rambling.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I am a holistic trauma resolution practitioner, and I have lots of different modalities that I use to help people to go from the pain and the suffering end of the spectrum into the ease end of the spectrum, the safety, connection, and fulfillment. Those are the three pillars of my work. And I use somatics, I use internal family systems, I use somatic activated healing, emotional de-repression, nervous system regulation, human design, Reiki. I pull from the mind, body, and energy spectrums because I think that is what's really necessary for sustainable transformation. We're not just a mind, we're not just a body, we're not just a soul, we're all of these things. And we have to look at all of these things in totality for us to experience a total transformation.
I completely agree with you. And I am so clear that there is not one specific approach that works for everybody. And so I love it when I find practitioners that use a broad range of modalities to assist their clients. And then it can become more of an individualized process for each client as well. Maybe you're working with somebody that needs a little more Reiki or somebody that needs a little more somatics, and you can fine tune based on who you're working with, which I think is amazing.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to trauma, that's it. I feel like it's kind of a trendy word right now. Somatics is getting really big right now. Can you talk to our listeners about your definition of trauma or what you see trauma as being and how it may or may not be something traumatic may or may not be something that we have actually recognized as trauma in our lives. You talk about trauma is what did happen to you, but it's also about what didn't happen. And you call that the subtle traumas. So I'd love for you to dive in there and then we'll see where that takes us.
Absolutely. So trauma is, most people think of trauma as in one acute incident, or like with complex PTSD, something that happens over and over and over throughout a period of time. So there's actually many types of trauma. You've got your acute trauma, which is going to be the car wreck, the carjacking, falling down the stairs, a surgery. Your body recognizes that as trauma because your mind is asleep, but your body is awake and it knows it's being cut on. And then you've got chronic trauma, which is the thing that would happen over a long period of time. And then we do think of trauma so often as what did happen. And what I find in so many instances is that it's what didn't happen. It was the lack of presence, the lack of love, the lack of connection, because those things are very core human needs. Attention, core human need. And especially in childhood, when we're these small systems that haven't fully developed and we're dependent on the people around us to help us to regulate our nervous systems. We can't do that when we're little, to learn how to feel our emotions. And we're often told that only this range of an emotion is acceptable, and then over here only this range is acceptable. And then if we go outside of that range, we're punished, or we're told to go to our room for just being a human. And so this disconnection registers to little bodies as trauma. And I love Dr. Gabor Mate's definition of trauma. And he says, trauma is not what happens to you. Trauma is what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you. And then here we go. Safety is not the absence of threat. It is the presence of connection. And there are a lot of studies that are coming out about trauma right now. And some interesting ones are around children who experienced really similar traumatic experiences. And the ones that did have a person, a trusted confidant, a caregiver that they could talk to, connect with, those children had increased levels of resilience and normalcy. I don't like that word, but like normalcy moving through life. Whereas the kids who did not have a support system, their person that they could be comforted by, held by, advocated by, or for, they ended up addicted, homeless, all of these things that our society judges as really bad. And so the resilience factor is really how much connection do you have as a child? And it's not necessarily what did or didn't happen. Like even the kids that have experienced tremendous amount of trauma, if you don't have that connection to a caregiver, that's when we start to see incredible amounts of damage internally. And then of course, incredible amounts of dysfunctional coping mechanisms.
You're saying that resilience factor is really based on the connections that you had that were positive as a child and growing up. And I think we see things like that with chronic illness. You know, it's like that nature versus nurture. They've done studies where you can see twins that have grown up in different households. And one twin, they're both genetically predisposed to an autoimmune condition. One twin presents, the other one doesn't with it. And they determine that a lot of that is lifestyle factors, but also the emotional factors that are involved with their lifestyle growing up. And so that really gets back to that childhood connection to somebody safe. When I'm having conversations with people who are struggling with their symptoms, struggling with their lupus flares, struggling, like they're really in the midst of their autoimmune condition, it's really easy to focus on directly like what is going on in my body today what am I feeling today? What symptom do I have to deal with today? And it's really puts you in a fight or flight type of, what do I have to do to survive this flare, this symptom, right? And so it's really easy to focus on just the physical, but you talk so much about the underlying root causes of things being these traumas that have happened in our lives. And it's hard sometimes to bring that up to somebody who's really going through that, to discuss, well, what could the root causes of this be? What are the deeper root causes besides my mom has it too, I'm genetically predisposed, or well, I didn't have good nutrition growing up or something, and that brought this out, that made me more susceptible to whatever it is I'm going through. How do we start to have that conversation with somebody to help them get underneath it all, to look at underlying causes such as trauma that maybe if we address and begin to slowly unravel and slowly resolve, it can actually affect in a positive way their health experience that they're going through acutely.
Yeah. Well, I usually just start asking questions based on the symptoms, based on the pathologized label that's been put on something. And when it comes to chronic health people, I usually start just by asking, like, what's your relationship with your body like? And most people don't have positive relationships with their bodies. Most people in general in our society, let alone people who are suffering from chronic dis-ease and chronic pain. And I was one of those. So I start to ask questions. And most people, are not in their bodies because it's painful. It's not safe to be in it. And so just starting to ask questions to like really anchor them back into their body and frame it from a perspective that's loving. Because I've noticed a lot of people in chronic pain and chronic disease that are resentful of their body. They feel like their body is holding them back. It's their body's fault. Their body's breaking down. Their body's betraying them. And what I've found is that your body is just advocating for you on the deepest level possible, because there are things that you have been unwilling to look at, things that you've been unwilling to feel, things that you've been unwilling to acknowledge that are running patterns in your life that your body is trying to get your attention. Your body is designed to come into order at all times. That is every single function of the body's purpose, to bring you back into order, to automatically heal, to come back into a homeostasis and an equilibrium. And when you start to look at the psycho-emotional roots of things, you see, even with these unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? Like, they at some point in time developed to keep you safe. So when we start to look at it from that perspective, then we start to be able to see deeper things. And I always just enjoy a little bit of humor too. Have you considered trauma? Like, it's all good. I'm a card carrying member, and I was able to heal my body when I started to really go in and say, I'm feeling shame. I'm feeling guilt. There are these things that I don't want to do that I feel like I'm being forced to do, right? I think that from a functional level, dis-ease and pain are usually serving one of four purposes. They're either protecting you from something, they're saying no for you, right? They're getting you attention that you didn't get, that you desperately needed. And there's a lot of stigma around attention seeking and that being bad, but as a human need, it is a core human need. You have internalized guilt, so you're punishing yourself for something, subconsciously, of course, or it's your body's way to love. If you were a kid and you didn't get attention, you didn't get love, then, you got hurt, and all of a sudden your mom's coming to pick you up from school, or suddenly like you're getting the attention of doctors and people are taking care of you and you're feeling loved. If that was a core imprint and you didn't get love and attention outside of that experience, the body knows that its only way to love is through pain, through being sick, through needing caretaking. So I also see a lot of people gaslight themselves and say, oh, my childhood wasn't that bad, so it can't be trauma. And basically, if I have a long enough conversation with someone, it doesn't need to be that long usually, I can ask them like, well, how are your periods? Or how's this function in your body? And they'll be like, oh, it's jacked. And I'm like, you can tell. You can tell. But the body is so literal, and it is always trying to protect you and to keep you safe. And sometimes that's setting boundaries that you refuse to set. Sometimes that is forcing you to have to quit a job that was not good for you. There's all kinds of different ways that this plays out, but ultimately just getting the mindset of my body is on my side. Even though it doesn't feel like it, even though it's an uncomfortable experience for me to be in and with, there is something happening here that my body is doing to protect me and to keep me safe. And if I can just attune to this and spend enough time with this body and appreciation and love and gratitude for this body, if I can talk to this body and let it know, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here to advocate for you, and I'm open to hearing what you have to tell me. I am open to meeting your needs. I just need to know what they are. Then we can start to get to a place where it's like, okay, we're on the same team. Now we can safely start to unpack what might be those underlying causes.
When you were speaking to your body, for those that are not watching this, that are just listening, you were tapping on your chest above your heart. Is that a good way that you use to get people grounded, get people feeling, actually literally physically feeling their body when they're doing that and tuning in to the heart center?
This is just like letting me know, hey, I'm talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to you. You right here. I'm talking to you. I am here for you. I am on your team. And I touch my body like all over every day. And it's like when I'm bathing, I am giving gratitude to my toes. I love bathing as a ritual and lotion as a ritual, like just spending time intentionally touching each body part and just taking a moment to feel what it feels like. What does it feel like to be my toes today? Oh, they're so cute. Oh, thank you, little piggies, for keeping me upright. Thank you so much. And then each part of the body, just intentionally touching it and being present with it, because we're so tempted to just like, oh, okay, I'm just like doing the thing, or I'm lost in thought. But if you can use even the smallest daily activities to be a bridge of presence and connection with yourself, you can experience some really big changes.
That is so powerful. These subtle little things of appreciation for your body. It could even be just making yourself a delicious warm drink and just sitting down and enjoying that and saying, this is nourishing my body, right? It could be taking 2 minutes to just close your eyes and breathe. It could be, like you said, putting lotion on and just showing appreciation for yourself. But it's something that sounds so easy and subtle to do. And yet, I think partly from society training us and partly from all these, past traumas, that can be really, really intimidating for somebody who doesn't have a good relationship with their body yet. How do we, so is that how you introduce people, your clients, to that feeling of creating safety within the body?
Well, nervous system regulation is always like number one, but we want to weave that in with building presence for just being aware of it, because for 15 years I was in a chronic state of dissociation because it was not safe to be in my body. There was emotional pain, there was physical pain, there was trauma, and I also was an unsafe place for myself because of my mindset and the thoughts that I was thinking about myself. So that's why it's so important for us to address all of these things together, because you can do all kinds of healing work, right? But if you're constantly thinking to myself all day long, like, I'm sick, I feel awful, I hate this body, I just want out of this body, why do I have this body? I want a new body. My body's betraying me, right? And there's like all of these thoughts that are running, even if they're subconscious, they're there. And so that's a huge one. Honestly, as a trauma practitioner who does so much body-based work, like, I have to say that the mindset is actually so important, because you're not going to experience healing in a body that you're talking shit to all the time. There's no safety. There's no connection. If you are an unsafe place for yourself, and it doesn't matter what you're doing externally, you're still unsafe and your body's going to respond to that. So if you just shift the narrative, and I love to like guide people to connect to a really beautiful moment that they've had. Maybe they saw an incredible sunset, or they got to take an amazing trip and they got to stand in the ocean, or they got to feel super tiny in some huge mountains. I like to take people to that moment and say, okay, without your body, you would never have had that experience. And then start to list the most amazing, magical experiences possible. The taste of something delicious, the feel of something soft, being able to pet a puppy or a purring kitty, and just like all of these tactile sensory experiences. This is the vehicle for that. This is the vehicle for pleasure, for play, for joy, for fun, for love, for stimulation. And without this body, we would not be able to experience any of that. So even though it's in pain, right? It's like, you know what? You're in pain. You're trying to tell me something. What would you do if a little kid came up to you and they were like, I'm hurting? You wouldn't be like, well, I'm mad at you for hurting. How dare you hurt? You're cheating me of my experience. You'd say, oh my goodness, let's figure out why. What's going on? What can we do to help? But we don't approach our own bodies that way. We get really resentful or gaslight ourselves like, well, you know, whatever wasn't that bad. We continue to try to mind over matter and not in a healthy way, but in a like, I know that this situation, this environment, this relationship, this job, whatever, is not supportive and not serving me, but I'm going to force myself to go back to it over and over and over and over again when your body is screaming for you to get out. It's just trying to advocate for you. It's just speaking a language to you. And when you give it the respect and the appreciation for what it is doing for you, what it's trying to do for you, and you start to partner with it, everything changes.
I love the way you worded that. When you start to partner with your body, everything can change.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful. And my own story, I mean, I was, on my own path to find healing from mono and chronic fatigue, eventually from lupus. And I tried all these different things and they all helped. But eventually I had to realize like something was still really missing because these things should be helping more than they were. And eventually I realized I was missing more of a spiritual connection. And I sought out, or I should say, as soon as I was ready, one literally appeared on my Facebook feed, a spiritual mentor. So began learning from the spiritual mentor, and it was truly all about mindset. It taught me 100% like that I have control over my thoughts. My thoughts don't need to run my life, and I can change my thoughts. Like, I didn't know that before. I thought everything I was thinking was right and factual and just that it was what it was.
We think something doesn't make it true.
I know that now, but holy cow, was that like a mind-blowing and mind-opening like thing for me to learn. And that is where the trajectory of my life started changing. That is where more doors started opening for just possibilities in my life as a whole, but also possibilities of actually shifting my health experience and creating a stronger, more resilient body to go along with a stronger, more resilient mind.
Yeah, I had a really similar experience. I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease when I was 15, 2 herniated discs when I was 16, and I was hit by a semi-truck when I was 17. I had back surgery when I was 19, and I spent most of the next decade unable to function on a normal basis. There were many days that I could not walk. And so chronic pain. And then on top of that, like anxiety, because it's like, well, I don't know when my back's going to be okay or not be okay. So I don't know when I'm going to be able to work. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my bills. Then I ended up infertile. I was supposed to be infertile. My partner was supposed to be infertile. And we ended up pregnant. So it's like I was in extreme pain through the pregnancy. And then after I had him, it was like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to take care of my child. I literally can't get up myself to pick him up. And so it was incredibly hard. And that was my rock bottom. And I realized I had this incredibly upset stomach, and I realized that I'm purging everywhere. I realized in the middle of this, my body's purging negativity. I am not a chronic one-upper. I'm a chronic one-downer. And I don't enjoy being around myself. Other people don't enjoy being around me. I am like the most negative person that I know. And so as soon as I stopped purging, I started looking up the habits of the most successful people in the world, and they all had two things in common. One was that they had a very consistent self-care program because they were their number one asset. And then they had a really intense mindset program. And so I was like, I'm starting there. I'm just going to start with self-care and mindset. And so I cut a lot of things out of my life. I made some changes. And within 4 months, my entire life was completely different, including, so I'm like on this mindset journey, right? And I'm like, I'm going to think positive and everything's going to, looked up all these affirmations, did tons of research. I studied psychology and neuroscience in college. So it was kind of like, oh, right, let's get back to this. So I started doing this work and implementing these affirmations and like becoming really aware of my thoughts and a really intentional curator of my thoughts. And the first thing that happened to really kind of like rock the boat and test my solidity was this little car wreck. I got in a little fender bender, totally my fault. And I was like tempted for a second to like, oh, woe is me. Car wrecks are a touchy subject for me because of my experiences. And so was really tempted to spiral mentally. And I was like, nope, I'm holding this. Everything is working out for my highest and greatest good. Everything is working out for my highest and greatest good. The next day I was in so much pain, I had to pull over my car. And I pulled over and to distract myself, instantly pulled up Facebook. And the first thing I saw was an ad for a chiropractor. And I was like, I'll try anything at this point. I've tried so many chiropractors. I've tried everything short of snail venom. Like I will do it all. So I called and I booked. Just so happened that little fender bender got me $5,000 of free chiropractic care. And that chiropractor and my mindset and my commitment to my body and to physical therapy exercises, within 6 weeks, all of my pain was gone.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I kept going because I was like, this is amazing. My entire life has changed. This is great. And there still felt like there was something deeper, something that wasn't being touched. So that's when I went and did my Reiki attunements. And that was amazing and supportive and fantastic. And there was still something deeper. And that's what got me into studying the mind-body connection and how the body will manifest symptoms, dis-ease, right? That are rooted in the mind and the emotions. And that is still the most fascinating topic in the world to me. And that led me to nervous system regulation, and that led me to trauma work. And I've been well down that rabbit hole for 4 years now. And a couple times my back has flared up in those 7 years, but normally within a week, like it's good to go. But I remember 3 years ago, my back had gone out again, and I was sitting outside in nature and I was just being still and quiet. And I just heard, "You're out of alignment." It was like, of course, my spine is jacked up. I'm out of alignment. Like the body is so literal. And it was like, there are things in your life that are out of alignment for who you are, and you are not cleaning it up. I'm trying to get your attention. And so I did the things that I know that will heal my back. Went to the chiropractor, did the magnesium baths, did all the things I knew I needed to do, and got to where I was good. I was pretty good. But I didn't clean up the thing that was out of alignment. So I come home from my birthday trip and my dog is paralyzed because he slipped a disc in his back. It's literally like the universe was like, you're not going to pay attention to what I'm trying to tell you. I'm going to put it in the form of your dog because you cannot ignore that. And 4 vets told me to put him down. And I was unwell, to say the least, because he's my best friend. He's perfect. And I just felt this like guidance to look up a crystal store. I'm sitting outside of the vet appointment. He's still inside. I'm sobbing in the parking lot. And I go and there's one like right around the corner, it turns out. So I go there and it was like, I picked up this one mahogany obsidian and it was like, remember who you are. And I was like, right. I've healed before. We're going to heal Hanky. And I started doing Reiki on him, and I completely changed my mindset about it. I took him to a dog chiropractor, and now my dog is completely fine. And so anytime that there's pain in my body, I stop and I think, okay, what was I just thinking? What's the situation? What are the circumstances? And I ask my body, what do you need? What do you need? Hey, I'm listening. What do you need from me?
It's so interesting to me personally that you brought up an issue with your dog and his back because my dog, who is also beyond perfect and is my best friend, has had a reoccurring pain issue that we've never been able to quite figure out. And I finally have him going to a chiropractor next week. But it never really occurred to me to see if it might relate to something in my life or in my body as well when it flares up. So now I have something to pay closer attention to that's very interesting. I also am having back problems that I haven't been able to fully get on top of either. So that is such an interesting correlation that I'm going to have to really spend some time looking into and thinking about. So that psycho-emotional roots to the physical pain manifesting in our body, I think is really area of science and research that is just we're just scratching the surface. I think it's like that and energy medicine, I think, is really like the next big thing that's going to be really looked into and developed. And I love that you're at the forefront of this movement and you're already working in it. That's so special and so needed.
I don't know that I would say I'm at the forefront. There are so many resources that are already out there. And when you start to ask questions and you start to get curious and you start to have a basic understanding of what systems of the body do what, it's so literal, right? If you know basics of chakras and then like basics of like what organs and bones and like what legs do, right? Like I had a whole lot of leg pain for a while and I was like, okay, my leg is hurting. What does my leg do? Well, it moves me forward. Okay. What am I holding on to that's keeping me from moving forward? I was storing grief in the back of my leg. And I went and I had a massage and he starts pushing on it. And I was like, oh, I was like, just going to let you know right now, I am going to cry. And he was like, I've seen you all. And I was like, great, because I've been storing grief in the back of my leg and it's been keeping me from moving forward. And I know exactly what it is. And for the longest time, I was like, I'm not ready to process that one yet. But even just acknowledging it and I like to look at it as like a shake and Coke bottle, right? And when it comes to trauma, when it comes to repressed emotions, safety is so important. So doing the processing work with the safety of someone else in the loving and compassionate witnessing presence of someone else is going to take you so much further than doing it alone. Because if you think about it, most of those wounds, most of those pains and those experiences were caused by or experienced in isolation. And so one of the most healing things that you can do is be witnessed by someone else in the emotion, in the pain. And then when you are angry and you're raging and you're snot flying everywhere and you're growling and hissing and someone is still there just saying, I got you. Come on, more. I got you. I got you. And I still love you. And you're still incredible. That is one of the most healing things that you can experience. And so when I talk about doing this type of work, I like to say that doing it with someone is one of the absolute best things that you can do. And doing it with someone who's trained so that it's done safely is recommended because it is like a shake and Coke bottle. Where if you shake all this stuff up and you're like, okay, I'm gonna go and look at it, and then you just twist the lid off, it's going everywhere, and it can be a lot to handle, especially if you don't have tools. Especially if you're still living up here or you're still dissociated, then it feels like it's so completely overwhelming. It's driving you further into dissociation or into your mind, and you're not actually fully feeling the feelings. You're thinking about feeling them, and you'll still cry. You'll still feel angry. You'll still want to kick something. and you're not being present with the emotion. So it's not getting a chance to fully release. It is still, you're just experiencing it and just getting run over by it. When there's a
Mhm.
really functional way that it can be de-repressed and it can be felt and it can be done safely. So yeah, it felt very important to say that.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and interrupt the program for just a hot minute. You know that I'm so passionate about this podcast, but what I'm also really passionate about is helping women with lupus minimize their symptoms, boost their energy so that they can indulge in life again. So if you are a woman who is struggling with lupus, who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, who's struggling to manage your flares, if you're finding that your lupus symptoms are just really getting in the way of you being able to live your life the way you want to, I feel you. I've been there myself and I felt the same way. And what I've found is that there are a certain set of health fundamentals that once applied, will support you in your foundational health. They will support you in building and maintaining that energy, minimizing flares, and allowing you to, again, indulge in life and follow your passions. So, if that is something that you are interested in creating for yourself, let's jump on a call together. I will walk you through the process that I use with my clients to get them from sick and tired to strong foundation of health by implementing my Health Bridge protocol. If this is something you're interested in chatting more about, I would love to talk to you. Apply for a free clarity call with me, and I look forward to getting to know you soon. And now back to the episode. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And yes, I realize there are many other resources out there besides just you doing this work. But I love that you are also bringing a really powerful presence to it. When you talk about the importance of having a practitioner by your side, I think that is incredibly important, incredibly healing. We can learn a heck of a lot by reading and researching and doing all these things on our own, but having somebody there that has that caring presence and understands where you're starting from and where you want to get to and can help you just step by step through that process is incredibly important and powerful. And so that's why finding a practitioner that you vibe with, that you feel energetic, like a good energy with, is super important. And to listen to your body. If you go have a consult with somebody and something just feels off, it doesn't mean they're a bad practitioner or person. It just might mean that's not the right person or the right modality for you at that time. So just again, tuning in. Okay, is this the right next step? Instead of trying to think through it, feel through it as well. Is
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah. Decision making with your brain's going to be a 50-50 crapshoot every time. But your body has every answer to every question every time. It always knows the answer. And it is always trying to communicate it to you. Now, if you've been dissociated for 15 years like I was, then it's going to take effort to be able to feel and understand what it's saying. And when you do, it's you can take one bite of food and be like, oh, this is not for me. Nope, I will not be eating this. I need to order something else. Instead of forcing yourself to eat the thing because you ordered it and you're going to have to pay for it. Right. Or if you say you go somewhere, this happened to me on this trip. I was sharing a room with someone and I was in a facilitator role and I was laying in bed and I was taking a drink of something and I choked and it kind of like it really jarred my back and I was in a lot of pain. And I was like, "Oh, okay. My back is like I'm holding space for someone right now while I'm on a vacation and I hold a lot when I'm at home. I'm just going to ask my body what it needs." And it said space. And so it's like, okay, well, the people pleaser in me doesn't want to tell this person that I've been like sharing a room with and like, we're just supporting each other. I don't want to go and tell her like I actually need some space from you. So I'm actually go rent my own room for tonight, but I did. I was like, "Hey, my body just told me that it needs space. So I'm going to take one night to take a bath and lay naked and be a human and watch a show and just get some sleep in the buff. And I'll be back tomorrow. And it has nothing to do with you. I'm just going to listen to my body and give it what it needs. And it was like, old me would have just bypassed that and been like, no, there's no sense in you go getting your own hotel room. You already have a hotel room. You're fine. I was like, nope, I'm going to advocate for you. Whatever you tell me you need, I got you. And then I was fine for the rest of the trip. No problems with my back whatsoever. And just learning, like with practitioners, this is huge, especially because there's just what a wild world as far as online coaching, right? There are some really gross practices out there. And there are some people who don't know what they're doing. And they hired a coach who said that they could teach them how to make $10,000 a month and they just need to double their rates, and they don't have the embodiment or the training. So ask for credentials, ask what their training is. And then in my personal sales process, I do a somatic session in the sales call to teach someone this is what it feels like to be in your body. And I walk them through an exercise so that they can feel what a yes feels like in their body. They can feel what a no feels like in their body. They can connect to the things that they want, and they can feel what that feels like in their body. So that when it comes time for them to make a decision, I can say, what does it feel like in your body when I say, we work together for 6 months? What does it feel like in your body for us to not work together? What does it feel like in your body if I say, I don't think I'm the practitioner for you, but I'm happy to refer you to someone who I think would be a really great fit? And I'm getting radical clarity and consent from them and taking their experience and centering that. I'm not centering my experience, I'm centering theirs. They're the ones that are coming to me because they want something different. It's about them, not me. So if they're not the perfect client for me, I know too that if we're not a good fit, not only are they not going to have a good experience, I'm not either. What's good for one is good for all. And I will not work with someone who's not a good fit just because it ends up, I learned the lesson once and that was all I needed. I always ask people, how does that feel in your body? Does it feel contracting? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel dense? Does it feel warm? Does it feel like home? Does it feel good? Does it feel like a hot mug of matcha going down into your belly? What does it feel like? Because your body will tell you the answers every single time.
And the more you listen, the more you teach your nervous system that it can trust you. And the more you create that connection within your body. And you can use that practice not just in looking for the right practitioner, but just in everything in life, right?
Yeah.
Everything.
I know a lot of people that muscle test, and I'm like, muscle testing is a great tool, especially for some internal functions. And it's like, I don't need to muscle test to decide if I should eat this or not. I don't need to muscle test to decide if I should leave this environment or not. I know based on how my body feels. My body tells me immediately. But I think that a lot of times just like people are afraid of really going all in on something because they're afraid of their success, I think sometimes that we're afraid of the power of our own bodies. And we don't realize that. It's a subconscious thing of, I'll be too much, I'll be too powerful, too many people will look at me and I'll be unsafe. That's a huge reason why women carry extra weight. Ask me how I know. It's my safety mechanism for a long time. During my trip to Peru, I experienced my body being so powerful, so resilient, so full of joy. And it was like, this is who you are. You are not the traumatized person anymore. You haven't been for a long time, which I knew. But it was just like such a beautiful affirmation to hear. You have so much power. The reason that you're tired is because you are damming up all of your energy. Basically short circuit yourself because you're blocking the flow of the tremendous amount of energy in your body, the tremendous amount of joy and creativity and expression and the power in your womb. You're damming all of that. And that is why you're tired. You move that energy, because I went to Peru with the intention of like really getting to the bottom of my back stuff again, because I've had another flare up in the beginning of this year, and I'm going through all the things, and it makes complete sense on paper, right? And it's like, okay, I need to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. And is there anything else? Is there anything else? So I went to Peru on this trip, like, what do I need to know? Be, do, have, or understand for my body to heal so that I never have this experience again. And it was like, you are so powerful. You have so much energy. You just think that you don't because it's dammed up. You've got to move it. You've got to let it express. You are here to be the purest reflection of joy in the world. So you don't have to keep digging in the dirt. You can start to play and enjoy and express and create and have fun and move all of this energy that you have. And all of those issues are going to go away.
Stagnation. It's all these things that we accumulate that just end up stagnating in the body. Like you said, you're storing trauma in your leg. You're storing stuck energy in your body, and it's causing continual flare-ups in your back. It's like we need to find ways of listening to our body, trusting the messages that we're getting,
Mm-hmm.
and or seeking out help in discerning that, finding ways of moving it through our body to transmute it. We have to be able to transmute this energy.
Yeah, it's all about alchemy. And
Mhm.
so you get to do that in ways that feel really good. But ultimately, like, I was just sitting on all kinds of ideas, had all kinds of things that I want to talk about. And that's why I was like, I'm booking 20 podcasts between now and May, because it's time for me to start opening this up and talking about what I know. And so that happened right before I went to Peru. So like it's really interesting that like my body already knew like you've got to start moving this. And so I'd already had something set up for that. But it was like, okay, you also have to start moving it in this way. You also have to start moving it in this way. You have to start moving it in this way. And it was like, oh, okay. And it literally showed me, for the record, I'm talking about a Wachuma ceremony that I sat in, and the the huge lessons that I got over and over and over again were like, you have so much power. You have so much joy. You have so much energy. You have to move it in these ways for your health. And I've implemented it. And I went to yoga last night and I did a little too much because I get over eager when I'm feeling good again. And so, like, this morning, I was like, oh gosh, I'm not okay. And then I was like, nope. What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? I gave it exactly what it needed. And now I'm great within an hour's time.
Awesome.
Every single step was painful to like, I'm good.
It's beautiful. This has been an incredible conversation, Meredith. Is there anything we haven't touched on yet that you're feeling like you want to share, or any last thoughts for those that are listening to us?
Yeah. One of the big things is that when you hold things in, and I don't just mean like energy, I mean trauma, I mean emotions, I mean secrets, I mean guilt, shame, rage, grief. When you hold them in, it does not create a positive and loving environment for you within your earthly vessel. And there's all kinds of people out here teaching you about manifestation, and mindset's incredibly powerful. And you the universe responds to who you are, not who you pretend to be. So when you're walking around with all of these repressed emotions, that's affecting your frequency. And sure, you can change your mindset, but it's like a matter of like arm wrestling mind and body. So when you can get on the same page, because it can feel really scary to start to do this work and to like open Pandora's box. But it's not. It doesn't have to be anyways. When you can regulate your nervous system first, start there. Start with regulating your nervous system. That is a huge, huge, huge common thread with every single diagnosis on the planet. If there's anything going on with your physical body, start with regulating your nervous system, period. And then once you feel safe in your own body and you have a loving and compassionate relationship with your body, start to to go into the emotions from the past. Start to look at the trauma and know that it doesn't mean anything about you. There's no one on this planet that's exempt from trauma or from the human experience. And when you have the capacity to sit with anger, with grief, with sadness, with rage, with frustration, with rejection, with shame, it incredibly opens up your ability to experience joy and love and pleasure and play and all of the good things that it's about. And that's what life is. It's all of it. And when we shut off one, we shut ourselves down to all of it. So just be open to the rich experience of being a human and know that it doesn't mean anything about you except for that you're a human.
I think that's just such a perfect place to end. And I just want to add that, like you said, everyone has had traumas. So there's no reason to feel ashamed that you're feeling these things. There's no reason to fear judgment. Are people going to judge? Sure, they might, but whatever. Like, you got your life to live. Like, let's do this. Like, choose you, choose joy, choose, choose a better life. You have the power.
Yeah. Like we get one of these. Most people are wasting it on their couch eating potato chips and watching Netflix. And sure, I love doing that from time to time, but like when you look at like the average experience and then you look at American Ninja Warriors, there's literally not a big difference between those people other than a decision and devotion. Like you can literally do anything that you want. You can have any experience that you want. You just have to decide. And then decide to heal, decide to do what it takes to be on your own team so hard that you figure it out until you get there.
Meridyth, where can everybody find you?
My website is www.easywonderfullife.com. And then you can find me on Facebook or on Instagram. And it's my name, Meridyth, last name Driskill, Meridyth Driskill.
This has been an incredible conversation, Meridyth. Thank you so, so much for sharing with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It was such a great conversation with Meridyth with so many great key takeaways. And what I'd love to ask you to do right now for just a moment, obviously, if you're driving, maybe put this on hold for a moment, but just close your eyes for a minute and tune in with your body for just a minute. How did that conversation sit with you? How did that talk about trauma and how it is held and stuck in the body? How does that make you feel? Does that ring any truth to you? Have you thought about your experience in those terms before? Where does it sit with you in your body? Take a deep breath, just breathe through that and just take note of it. Take note of your initial like gut reactions to the topics that we discussed today. Depending on how you feel, it could indicate that you have some work to do there, right? We all have trauma work to do. It doesn't matter, like she said, what an amazing childhood maybe we had or how supported we were. Things can happen through life. That is life. It's just that things are going to happen. And for one reason or another, things lodge in our system and we all have things to work through. That really is the journey of life, right? But the more that we can tune into our body, listen to its messages, create that relationship, that deeper relationship with our bodies, the quicker we can move through these things that come up and that get stuck, and the quicker we can transmute them into something usable, something beautiful, something that teaches us more about ourselves and who we are and what works for us on a mental, spiritual, emotional level and what doesn't. Reach out to Meridyth. I have all of her information in the show notes. She also has a journal that she wrote and it is available on Amazon. It's called the Deep Self Exploration Tracking Journal. So it's really about how to track your thoughts, track your moods, track your physical symptoms, track all these different key things in your life throughout your day to help you tune into that and create more of that self awareness and create some embodiment practices to bring you more into alignment and more in tune with your body and learn from the wisdom that it has to share with you because our body's giving us messages all the time. Are we aware of them? Are we tuning into them? So, this journal is designed to help you tune into all those signs and signals that our body's given us on a daily basis. So, take advantage of that. And if you are struggling with an autoimmune disorder, if you are struggling with lupus, which is my specialty, please reach out to me. I'd love to have a free call with you to gain some clarity on where you're at. We can take a look at, is there a trauma background here? Is there stuff that my body is telling me that I'm not tuning into? How do I create that relationship with my body? I would really love to dive into that further with you and give you some actionable tips that you can use right away, whether or not we are aligned to work together. But if you aren't happy with where you're at, I invite you to reach out to me or to reach out to Meridyth and explore your options, explore the possibilities that you can have an amazing life ahead of you. But sometimes we just have to move some of the stuff first. We have to become more aware, become more in tuned, and in order to create the pathways for that incredible life that you want to manifest it to happen. So, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Health Bridge podcast. And I look forward to seeing you next week on our next episode.